Hello, everybody.
Hello, welcome back.
Welcome back
For you to join us on this lovely day.
Yes, welcome back to CSI.
CSI. No, I don't know what the fuck. We're not. Anyway, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good episode. You know why? Because we're going to be talking about mental health and the anxieties that we have. And we've talked about this before in our escapism episode. We talk about this in a lot of our episodes that, like,
yes, we do.
Our shit is getting weird, and we know your shit's getting weird, for lack of a better.
Yeah, even even the most mentally stable of us all are having.
Tell me, is your shit getting weird?
Major breakdown. Yeah. Excuse me. What I wanted to ask was, is your shit getting weird?
How do you feel about your shit getting weird? But we are obviously not therapists, but we're going to talk to one today. And you might recognize her from our awesome Cajun Underaged episode, Miss Marcie. She is a social worker and therapist that is so fucking smart and an angel of a person. And we can't wait to talk to her about ways we can deal with our anxiety.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
2020 and beyond. Ways that we can all deal with it during pandemic, government insurrections, job insecurities, everything.
Oh, yeah.
That we're all having to work through. And at this point, like almost a year into the pandemic, I would say in the summer, maybe some people were like, I'm fine still. But like at this point, a lot of us have had some kind of little breakdown or come to Jesus moment or restructuring of our thought process or our life. And so, we all could use some tips, some tricks from an actual therapist if we're not already talking to one.
Yep.
So let's get into it with her.
Enjoy. Marcie, I'm so happy you're here again. You graced us with your presence and your knowledge for the second time now, and we're so lucky.
Yeah, I feel like last time we had you on, obviously it was our episode on the prison system and how therapy works within that. However, I would venture to say a lot of us might not have imagined that months and months and months down the road, we would still be dealing with a lot of what we were dealing with then. And I think a lot of us could use some advice from a professional.
Yeah, it's just interesting, Marcie. Tell me if you agree with this. And because I feel like, and me and Molly have talked about this, and me and my other friends have talked about this, how we're in this new kind of phase when it comes to checking with our mental health, where it's like, oh, I don't have my shit together. And I read this tweet of this woman who talked about post-traumatic stress and how, now we're getting, the election's over, the pandemic's kind of slowing down. We're getting vaccines. And it was like, our bodies will start to recognize, I guess, our PTSD when we've kind of reached a place where we think is safe. So like we're thinking we're in a safe place. So now it'll kind of come up, because we're like, okay, now I'm deeming this a safe space. So now I can check in, and now we're feeling all these like things that we didn't before. Is that kind of normal?
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because that was a lot of what I was thinking about when I was thinking about this episode. Is like our self-growth collectively has been stunted for a year. And once we come down from this, then like that full impact of like, whoa, not just everything that happened while we were in survival mode, but also like the relief of where we're at then is going to hit us, which might also be overwhelming. That could be fun.
Yeah, we're like 100% in a survival mode right now, which I find so interesting. But first, like have you personally like kind of approached mental health in a different way this year, like, so far in 2021 or the latter part of 2020? Has your approach to dealing with things changed because of the environment in which we live in?
I think, yes, totally. I think that's true for just about everything we've done. It is just different.
Yeah.
I think going towards more of that survival mode has been the biggest change.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot less room for like this big growth as people, we're all on our personal journeys, but not this year.
Yeah.
The last year we've just been on like, how do we get through today? How do we get through this week? How do we get through, the election or whatever? And it's just taking everything and breaking it down really small.
Yeah.
Which could I think is a part of our personal journeys.
Yeah.
And
Having
it's
more
like
grace,
the hard
patience.
part, but I feel like kind of on the flip side of that, I feel like it's been almost more of a looking inward personal journey time for all of us, which is why it's also been so hard, because it's like forced everybody to examine their lives under the microscope that we didn't have to look at it before, because everything was just moving along as it normally did. And so I'm wondering if like it's like forced introspection, but also like you're saying survival mode. It's like they're both true at the same time, which creates this really weird kind of like friction between self-reflection and looking inward and doing that type of work, and also just having to take it day by day. And how, as a therapist, and even for yourself and with your knowledge as a professional, how do you handle that in your own personal life?
I mean, not always with grace, honestly. I think there are days for all of us where it's like, yeah, we're, trying to get what we can from this experience and kind of distill that and learn from that. But then there are definitely days for myself where I'm like, today we're going to be like absolutely as good of like a therapist and a partner and whoever as we can be. And if that's not as great as it is on a good day, then whatever, like we're getting what we need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this could be like a Captain Obvious question, but like, and you can talk personally as well. Like, what are some things so people can hear and they're like, oh, I relate to that. Like, you're seeing a lot of people face like challenges and like, and these negative feelings, intrusive thoughts, anxieties. What are like the common things that you're seeing people face, or, or even your own clients that are kind of maybe different now that could be collective?
I think just this is going to sound really lame, but I think just people being crabby.
Like less patience or less
everything, like just the general anxiety, because we all collectively as a society have higher anxiety than we did before. And people are touchy. I think I'm noticing myself being more touchy in my daily life. I'm noticing all the people around me, like everyone's so much more sensitive.
Yeah.
And that truly does come from that like increased anxiety. So
I'm noticing
a bad mood.
a lot more, like significantly more erratic driving. Like when I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but like to an extreme degree in the last like couple months, where I'm just like, these people have a death wish. Like I don't know if people are if they're taking it out on the road now that we can kind of be out more than like we could over the summer, at least in LA. People are driving more, but I feel like people are just like reckless out there, and I don't know if that's a symptom of all this.
Right? Can you tell the mental state of a certain city based on the drivers?
Probably.
And the driving that you're seeing on a highway or freeway. You're like, oh, this city needs a lot of therapy. And yeah.
Sometimes I really do think I can. Sometimes I like watch people driving and I'm like, I kind of know where you're at right now. I probably don't. I'm probably just being way too full of myself, but I like to think so.
It's interesting.
What would you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Alyssa.
No, I was going to say, I was like, with the crappiness and the impatience, like, how do we have like the language to communicate better, instead of just being crabby? Like,
yeah,
because I'm that way. And, if you're in a relationship or whatever, friendship, and you're not being.
Yeah, Ryan's about to leave her.
No, I'm about to leave. No, it's both of us, but we have different ways of being our crabby selves. Like, what's a good way to kind of communicate your crabbiness?
I think the best thing we can be right now is empathetic.
Yeah.
Because it's way easier to see somebody else's crabbiness than our own. But then also to just be like really honest with other people. Like everybody's feeling it. So it's a little more okay to step out and be like, hey, I feel super anxious today, and I'm not mad at you, but I'm gonna sound mad at you if this conversation keeps going.
Well, that makes a huge difference as someone on the receiving end too. If somebody tells you look, I know I'm acting this way, or I might be this way today, and this is why. It doesn't mean that if they are that way, that it's going to be fun for you. But honestly, it takes away the whole level of like, is this because of me? This isn't fair. Why are they, did I do something wrong? Like that is all removed. Even if you could still be hurt or annoyed, but you are like, well, they did say this and I understand what's happening. I think people take for granted the smallest communication of just like, I don't know why I'm having this kind of day, but I'm having this kind of day, just so you know, in case I bite your head off later. Because it's not like then it's okay to bite someone's head off later. But if you do, they're going to be like, you said this might happen. I think I know what's happening. But like, what do you do if you wake up one day? Because I have a lot of friends I talk to have experienced this over the last year where one day they're fine and nothing in their immediate day-to-day personal life changes, but because of how things are going in the world, it makes sense. But you wake up one day, just uncontrollable anxiety. Your heart is racing. You can't focus on one thing, or you just wake up and you're like, what's the point in anything? And it's like this wave of depression just right when you wake up, before you even feel like you don't have control over it, because you're like, I just woke up like this. I didn't even make the choice to feel like this. What would you say is a way for someone to handle that, or to check that behavior, or to move through it?
I think just being really patient, that if you know that these kind of days happen, just kind of noticing the wave and letting it happen. Also just taking that bit of time, letting people know, communicating to other people like, hey, I feel like shit today. I might be whatever. And then giving yourself the allowance of like, hey, I might feel like shit today. I might need to go rest, or I might need to take a half day or do whatever. So just really being gentle with ourselves the way we need to be gentle with other people, because everyone's on edge.
Are there like tips, for certain, like, have you seen in your own work when someone has a panic attack and they can't get out of that like spiraling negative thought tornado? And is there something like physical or like just like little tips to kind of break that spiral up?
Yes. So panic attacks usually are when we like, it's emotion, but it's also physical, and our brain is panicking and it literally thinks that we're dying, and alarm bells are going off, and that general feeling of we can't breathe. And the best thing we can do there is to kind of ground ourselves to reality, like the physical reality around us. And so what we do for that is called grounding. I usually have clients do, because it's easy to remember things that sound good. So we do like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding, which is where you connect to all 5 of your senses. Notice 5 things you can see, and 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Or if you really like grounding some other way, you can do 5 things you can taste. You got some food. The general idea there is then we're calming down our whole system, and we're allowing more productive parts of our brain to take over and really recognize, oh, this is anxiety. This isn't death. Because I thought it was death, and actually, just kidding. It's anxiety, and I can handle that.
That's really, so what other, like, I love that, because I think a lot of people don't have something tangible to go to. And also we all know, like, just breathe, whatever. But whatever that means, like personally for me, like I'll take deep breaths, but I don't have like a breathing exercise, or what you just said is like a mental exercise. Do you have any more of those things that people might be able to use at different times?
Oh, I've got my pockets are full of them. As far as breathing, there are, some people like commit their lives to breathing exercises. So I'm sorry if I'm offensive here. But I use a really basic one with my clients because, again, when we're panicked, we need something kind of easy that we call like square breathing. And you basically just imagine a square, and you're breathing in for 4 seconds, holding it for 4 seconds, breathing out for 4 seconds, holding that for 4 seconds, and then just like keeping going around in that square. And just that focus in on your breath, because your breath is your life force, helps your body focus on just living, just being alive in that moment rather than that panic.
Yeah.
When you do that, do you notice a pretty immediate difference?
I do, yeah. I think because it really does, it slows down kind of our panic and our like life or death, our fight or flight that's going on right then. And then you'll notice your whole body, like your shoulders will become less tense once you're out of that panic state. Your breath will be a little easier. It'll be a little less tight. You'll usually notice a change in temperature. Just your whole system kind of cooling off from there.
This might be a weird question, but is there something like, and this could be more personal for you, or if you're noticing it in a client, like, is there like a pre-panic attack kind of exercise you can do to yourself when you kind of like feel it coming on and you're just like, okay, this is what I remember. Well, I mean, maybe the breath and the 5, what'd you call it? I forget.
Grounding.
The grounding,
yeah,
the 5 grounding could be a thing,
3, 2, 1.
but I don't know if there's like a different exercise to do even beforehand, like when you kind of know, like, oh, I just read Twitter, I'm gonna have a panic attack. Like, is there like, I guess besides don't read Twitter, is there something that you can probably do to ground yourself beforehand?
I think breathing or grounding or knowing your limits can be helpful. If your issue is overthinking, one thing that I use and that I recommend a lot of clients use is essentially creating. This one's a little more out there, so I'll kind of try to keep it shorter.
No, you're fine.
But it's essentially going to like a room in your mind, creating like a blank room in your mind, and in there creating a container. Could be a box, a bank vault, whatever, but something sturdy enough to hold what you're worried about. And it sounds really crazy, but it's how we talk to our brain because that's how our brain works. Kind of being able to turn your thoughts into something that can fit in that container, putting it there, letting it stay there, and then kind of leaving that room and going back to reality without having to bring all those thoughts and all those anxieties with you. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And without feeling like you have to destroy them completely. Like they can exist, but they just have to be in the other room.
Exactly. Like you can still go back to that thought or whatever you're worried about later, but it gives you that allowance to really have that space from whatever you're concerned about.
It's really interesting as someone who, you know, I've been fighting against going into therapy for a while, and not because I have anything against it. I think it's very much like, I don't know, I got to work it out in therapy. But it's like, it's interesting that, you know, visualization can be so powerful. And for someone who like has never really done it and hasn't had the discipline to do it, it's wild that the brain can be wired in a way where just like thinking about 5 things that taste or just checking in with the taste that you're having in that moment could snap you out of a negative thought spiral, or envisioning putting bad feelings and intrusive thoughts into a box and in a container in a blank room that you create in your mind can be so powerful. But it makes so much sense because you're doing that anyway. You're kind of, it's, you know, it's framework. You're inventing these negative thoughts. So why not invent a way to contain them at the same time? You know, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Not really a question, but realization.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. That's like, well, and it also made me think. So Alyssa and I had an episode 2 weeks ago about escapism and the things that we've been doing throughout this time that have given us some kind of escape, or, you know, whether it's a movie or a book or a workout or whatever. And my question to you as a therapist, like as a professional, how do you know when you've crossed the line between healthy escapism and dangerous escapism?
It's a great question, Molly.
That is a really good question.
Is 20 hours of Netflix in a row bad?
No.
I think it all depends on you, like the basics. Are your needs still getting met? Are you still taking care of the anxiety that you need to take care of? Or is it building up inside of you while you're escaping?
But how do people
making things worse
know that if they're not versed in therapy or like haven't regularly gone to therapy, like
checking in with themselves?
Because a lot of people fool themselves and no, I am dealing with it. I feel better when I'm watching this or when I'm. How can you distinguish within yourself? Am I dealing with this or am I burying it?
I would say that is a complex question.
I know.
I would say the best thing that you can do is like check in with yourself. Check in with yourself physically. A lot of the times, things that we won't recognize emotionally, they're going to show up physically. Like all this stuff is going on, and I've got a backache, or I've got all these other things going on that there's no other option for. And then checking in with yourself, like really looking around you. Are you chewing down your nails? Are you not sleeping through the night? Are you, not eating or having food anxiety or things like that? Usually, if you look around your life, you'll kind of notice these anxiety breadcrumbs that have been dropped throughout. And then you'll put those pieces together and be like, oh my goodness. Oh, I am anxious. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Like people, like if you're cleaning every day aggressively, or you're not cleaning your place, or your hygiene is let go, or you're not fulfilling your work responsibilities, like all those little things that we kind of can isolate and think, oh, it's just because I was tired. Oh, it's just because I was busy this week. Oh, it's just because my room was messy. But if you really, I guess it's what you're saying is like take a step back and look at all of it together and be like, I think there's an issue.
Yeah, I like that. The anxiety breadcrumbs makes so much sense because it's going to manifest in different ways. And like, I think you get to a certain point where you can't ignore it. And I'm speaking like very personally, I'm very much that person of like, I got it. I can do it. Like, I'm just going to deal with it by escaping to this movie that I'll watch a billion times. I'll just watch The Office for the 900th time in a row because I'm fine. I don't have to deal with it. But like it'll manifest in so many different ways that you don't even recognize as unhealthy. You're just like, oh, that's just life. No, that's something you can control, Alyssa.
Yeah.
I'll be the guinea pig. Another question I have, and we kind of spoke on this before about limitations, but maybe there could be more to it of just somebody, again, personal, of like who can't handle the constant news cycle that's happening
Alyssa,
right now. Like,
you are paying her for this, right? I'm just kidding.
It's so sad.
Do you want to know my hourly
that's my
rate?
life right now. Of like, well, I'm trying to find a
it's the
therapist
same.
in LA, but like my friends and my smart friends are just going to be that for me.
Exactly.
And this podcast.
Sounds like healthy friendships.
Yeah.
God love them. But but like basically advice to people that can't handle the news cycle that's happening right now. The insurrections that happened really rocked me and a lot of the people
like
that I know.
how fast-paced it is.
Texas, what's happening in Texas right now. That's just like so much bullshit that's just like constant. No one has their vaccines yet for the most part. Like what can you tell people that can't handle that shit?
I would say like reduce your consumption first off.
Yeah.
There's actually not that much news, but MSNBC does have to fill 24 hours of a day. So suddenly you're getting everything. So if you can sum that up into, maybe there's a podcast that you found that will sum up yesterday's news for you tomorrow morning, then you're getting a more synthesized version. So that would be like my number one. Do not be listening to news all day because that's going to drive anybody crazy. And then in addition to that, I would think pick and choose a little bit what you're most interested in hearing about.
Yeah.
Can you really handle keeping up with, every coronavirus case that's gone bad and who is and isn't getting vaccinated and everything that's going on with politics and natural disasters and global warming?
Yeah.
Or is there just one or two areas that you're more interested in that maybe you should be focusing there? There's so much pressure right now for everybody to know everything that's going on in the world. And that's unrealistic and probably unhealthy.
Yeah. And I also am thinking right now, as you're saying this, the irony of it all is that I think a lot of people are latching on to the fact that they can consume and learn and know. The more they know everything that's going on in every detail and be informed, it's because it's the only level of control that they feel that they have in that moment. And so it's like, it's unhealthy, but there are still people that are like, feel more productive or better about themselves if they're well informed. And I know this, well, actually this happened and so did this yesterday. Did you hear? And it's like, what is it about your ego? Like, why do you actually feel the need to know all that? And like you said, only a certain amount of it is useful to you at a time and even interesting to you at a time, but it becomes more a thing of control because a lot of stuff feels out of our control. So I think a lot of people are coping with that by feeling in control over the amount they know, if that makes sense.
No, completely. Yeah.
Just like a kind of a trap because you do want to be informed, but then I just put myself in cycles where I'm like, I'll be 1 week, I'll be pretty on top of it. And then for like 2 weeks, I'm like, I know the bigs, like you said, there is a lot of news, but there's also not that much. In the broad spectrum, there are certain topics that are big and there's only so many and they're big, but like coronavirus, climate change, like, you know, the White House, like the changes in the White House right now, and those are big issues and there's a lot of details. You could go on forever, but at the end of the day, there's like a handful of big topics. And then what ones this week do I care about? And then also I tend to just like when I'm able to absorb the most news is when I feel like maybe I took 2 weeks and I just read the books I want to read or like worked on my music or just caught up with friends that are living in different states. And then I have the mental capacity to tune into the news again. But it's like, if I do it all the time, it's this weird thing. I think it's like capitalism hangover. Well, we're still in capitalism, but it's like a hangover of like productivity and I have to, and I have to like be on top of this at all times, but like it can kill you.
Yeah.
Somehow, like pretty quickly.
I know it's interesting too, because I can find myself being that way. And I'm just like, well, I'll judge myself if I don't know what's happening. If I don't know who's hurting where, then how am I going to fix it? And it's like, you know, it's like, if I don't know, then I can't fix. And if I can't fix, then what is the purpose? You know, it's just
but then if you know, do you feel like you can fix it or do you still feel helpless once you know? Because a lot of the stuff I'm like, I know it now. And now I'm real depressed. And I'm glad I know things, but also, damn, like I can't go to.
I know. I don't know. It's like a weird, I don't know if you can speak on this, Marcie. Like you know, maybe I'm not the only person. I'm sure I'm not, but it's like, you know, you want to be on Twitter and you want to be in the know because it's like you don't want to be ignorant of what's happening, but you're also just like, this is not healthy.
Yeah.
Right. It's hard.
Yeah. And honestly, I think being okay with the fact that regardless of what anybody on Twitter says or what you hear, because there is some sort of pressure to like, why don't you know this? Why are you ignorant of whatever's going on?
Yeah.
But being okay with the fact of knowing that you can't actually know everything and no one knows everything. And you certainly can't help everyone. If you're trying to spread like your care or your money or whatever you're doing to help people around 20 different causes, you're being pretty ineffective. But if you have one or two that you're really passionate about and that you want to help with, then you can make a much bigger impact, which is going to feel better for you. And it's going to be more helpful.
Yeah.
And you're going to feel more rooted in it too, probably. Because it's like if I read one article about what's going on in Texas or about climate change, and another article about Biden's latest policy, and another article about the vaccines, and another article about racial injustice, it's like I know a little bit of all of it, but it just overwhelms me. And then when I do have a conversation about any of those topics, I'm like, I read one article about it recently and it was this, whereas like the ones, I guess like for me, I know I'm always so in depth and drawn to like social justice issues, and you too, Alyssa, I know for sure, like racial injustice, and like half my bookshelf is taken up with that. And so when it's like, there's so many bad things happening, it's like, I'm one person. That means I can make a change, but I can only make a change in a limited amount of areas. So like whatever I'm most informed about, I can do more about. But it's hard when there's so much to choose from. You're like, what should I care about the most today?
Yeah. I think it's like what you're saying is just like having grace and patience with yourself. So it's like, it's okay to not know everything and not fix everything. I feel like that's on control. Like that's on the need to have control in your life.
Also, how do you recommend, Marcie, that we like check in with loved ones to not only make sure that they're okay, but to like maintain some level of social activity during this time, especially with people who aren't living in the same town or like even Alyssa and I haven't, we're both in LA. We haven't seen each other in months. And, so, but I'll check on people while also like helping yourself by socializing, you know, like what's the best way to be there for someone?
I think the more we can set up like times, fitting that into your actual routine and making specific times when we go and we talk to people is going to be the most helpful thing we can do for ourselves and for other people. So whether it's, you know, we've all gotten so used to like Zoom dates or happy hours or whatever, making sure that we're really setting up times for that. So it's not just this thing that we say that we're going to do and then we isolate instead because that feels more comfortable.
Right.
But we're pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone to go do things. I keep thinking, you know, everybody's had terrible Friday nights and we don't really have terrible Friday nights anymore because everyone's just home. And we kind of need to open ourselves back up to that. Like, I don't want to go out, but whatever, you know, I'm going out or going to my living room and going on a Zoom date.
Right.
But really kind of following through on those plans.
Yeah. That makes sense too. Because it's like, I think about, I don't know if you have too, of just, you know, when most people are vaccinated and like more of the world is opening up around us, like LA is not really opened up that much. I wonder the PTSD of it all, you know, when it comes to just people being like, no, I'm okay, because they're just so used to being isolated that they don't want to go out. They don't want to see people, or they're just going to, if they are, they're going to be, their anxiety levels are just going to be up to here because that's what they're just used to for a year now, you know?
Yeah. I think we're going to see social anxiety go way up.
Really?
I think so, because there are so many people, at least for the people who have been working from home or just like isolating themselves, it's become a lot easier to, when we're anxious or when we're depressed, whether it's related to everything that's going on or not, to isolate. That's become really socially acceptable right now. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how like people relate to each other once we're all out of this, and whether people keep giving themselves those allowances to retreat and isolate.
That's what I was gonna ask, because my instinct would have been to think that once things open back up again, social anxiety will be lower because people now are comfortable being alone and being on their own. So when they do choose to go out and be social, it's because they decided to do it, and people have relieved themselves of some of that pressure we used to feel like, I have to go to everything. I have to, because now people are like, no, I'm actually okay at home on a Friday night. I know what that feels like. I know how to do that now if you didn't before. And I was kind of thinking about the opposite side, like, well, maybe now when people are out, they'll appreciate it more and they'll only go if they want to. Because previously, I feel like a lot of people were like, it was like FOMO and like, oh, I need to, I gotta go. But now I'm hoping, tell me if you think this is even a possibility too, that because of the isolation, now people are like, this is always an option. I can isolate myself if I want to. And so I'll allow myself that decision of, do I want to do this or not? I don't know.
I wonder. I feel like we have been FOMOing pretty hard for a year.
Yeah,
but is it FOMO if no one else is doing it? You know what I mean? Like we've all are like, oh, I miss life, but you don't feel like you're the feel like you're the only one at home while everybody's out living life, because we know that we're all quote unquote missing out. But can you miss out on things that aren't happening right now?
I don't know. That's my professional
Marcie, give
answer.
me all the answers to life.
I think it'll be so interesting. I mean, even just looking up for stuff for this episode, I am legitimately really excited about the data we're already collecting on people socializing based on this, and that we'll continue to collect.
Which is what? Like, what are you seeing that was making you happy?
Oh, nothing happy. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
But it's exciting because it's new information. But
so sorry.
So sorry. to get your hopes up that there was some happy information being collected. It's not. But it is this kind of like horrible social experiment that we have managed to do on this grand scale.
Yeah.
So I think the questions you're bringing up are going to be really interesting questions that researchers are asking and are going to continue to ask. And I think we're going to see a lot of, in modern history, we've never had something like this happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So being able to get
Watch
to see that.
Happen.
Yeah.
And there would never be an experiment this broad and worldwide without a pandemic. Like you said, we literally have all this data just handed to us now. Like, what would happen if 80% of jobs overnight switched to working from home and nobody could socialize? Like, those are questions we would want to know, like, as like a sociologist, psychologist, or just human behavior.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be curious, but there's no way you'd find out unless this happened.
And now you kind of get to, it's this, you don't want it to happen, but then it does. And it's like, okay, like they have been able to show that, like, in general, mental health has gone way down for the entire population. And that's, again, not happy news, but it's good information, and it tells us a lot about the importance of human relationships.
Yeah. That's the thing, like, knowing something. I see what you're saying by exciting, because it's exciting to know. Like, if it's really bad news, that's so important to know. Mm-hmm. And, like, there's no other way to move further in our species development without knowing how we even operate.
Yeah.
But
also limit. And if you can't process this news, it's okay. Turn on a good podcast. Wait, turn on our podcast. Watch another one of our episodes if you can.
Just
this
move.
is a lot
Sorry
for you.
About that.
Oh my God.
Marcie, thank you so much for coming back on.
Yes.
And for giving us tangible, in the moment, relevant tools for us to all navigate through this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for showing us that even professional therapists have to navigate themselves through it.
Very much so.
Yeah, just reminding people that, like,
they're not alone.
There's no destination to get to where you're mentally stable forever. That's no such place exists.
Unfortunately, there's no such place. Maybe someone will someday, but
aliens probably figured it out. I love me some aliens.
Yeah.
They probably have.
But thank you so much, Marcie, for taking the time out of your day.
Thank you so much, Marcie. You are amazing. I'm so excited to have more insight on this.
I feel 10 pounds lighter already in my mind.
Oh my God. I hope you all learned something today. I know we did. We want to have her on all the time, because I'm sure the next catastrophe that happens, we're going to need her on to help us through that one. So,
exactly.
Shout out to her. Thank you so much for coming on again. Shout out to a really great charity that we found, or nonprofit, called Anxiety and Depression Association of America. AADA is an international nonprofit focused on prevention and treatment of anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and other conditions through education, practice, and research. The organization's members include psychiatrists, psychologists, neuroscientists, researchers, nurses, social workers, and therapists. They aim to improve individual well-being through a variety of support strategies and resources, including free webinars, online peer-to-peer support groups, a therapist directory, newsletter, and more. So to learn more and donate, please visit adaa.org.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please rate us, review us, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you stream your podcasts. YouTube, SOS with Molly and Alyssa, Instagram and Twitter at the SOS Pod. Please follow us, stay tuned. We put a lot of the references, references that we have in our episodes, we tag and share on our Instagram. So if we're talking about a certain author that week or a certain Instagram page, if you follow us on Instagram, you'll get more in-depth, a link to them, or more in-depth about what we're talking about here. So please follow us, rate us and review us. It helps us in the algorithm. And I'm Molly Cottrell.
I'm Alyssa Rosano.
And here's to turning meltdowns
into magic.